Instructor Jira clapped her long, clawed hands together, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Settle down, class." "It's time to learn about Earth," the mixed group of alien students groaned as they shuffled into their seats, clearly unenthused about another planetary lesson. Vakari, a blue-skinned Ural, lazily twirled a stylus in her hand, smirking. Rykon, the pink-skinned Optician, muttered something under his breath as his yellow compatriot Thyra leaned back in her chair, rolling her eyes. Inara, one of the secretive Jinn, sat quietly, her mask covering her expression, while the Carrick student Kalrex slouched, his scaled brows raised in amusement. Shira's bright yellow lips pursed in frustration. Teaching her students about Earth was always a challenge. The alien races under her tutelage came from worlds far more controlled and predictable than the wild and untamed human homeworld. Earth was chaotic, fact the Confederation Council constantly debated, given the ever-growing human influence. "I'm sure you've heard the rumors. Today we'll be doing more than just studying Earth in theory," Jira said, her fronds flickering as the students' attention sharpened. "We're going there." The room fell into stunned silence. Even Ziara, the arrogant female Ural, blinked in surprise. To Earth Tirek, the pale-skinned Ipal asked, eyes wide. "But it's a Deathworld," Jira smirked. "Yes. And that's exactly why we're going." The class descended toward Earth aboard a sleek Confederation shuttle, the planet's blue and green hues gleaming below. Even with the protective shields, the alien students fidgeted in their seats as the gravitational pull increased. For many of them, this was the first time they had experienced Earth's relentless gravity. The shuttle's descent slowed, and they passed over thick forests, vast mountain ranges, and glittering oceans. "This," Jira began, standing at the front of the craft, "is what many of your worlds were like before you tamed them. Earth, however, has resisted such efforts. The humans choose to leave their world in this state." "Why would they want to live in that Leora's?" a juniper-colored male Ural asked, staring wide-eyed at the wilderness below. "It's chaos in their eyes." Zara replied, "It's a challenge, a test of strength, endurance, and survival. They believe that conquering their planet's dangers has made them what they are." They landed at a research base on the edge of one of Earth's vast national parks. The air was thick with moisture, and the scent of wild plants and animals assaulted the alien senses. The base itself was primitive by Confederation standards, fewer automated systems, more human personnel. It was as if the humans took pride in using their own hands to maintain their facilities. "Welcome to Earth, Captain Ward," their human guide said with a grin, adjusting his pack. "We'll be heading into the wilderness, so stay close and follow the rules." "This place doesn't care where you're from," the students exchanged uneasy glances. Rykon tightened the straps on his pack, his usually confident demeanor faltering under the weight of Earth's gravity. Thyra glanced around nervously as birds screeched in the trees above. They set off on foot, following Captain Ward into the dense forest. The trees loomed overhead, and the underbrush crackled beneath their feet. Shira walked beside Ward, her long tail swaying with each step, perfectly composed, but her fronds flickered subtly, betraying her own tension. "Earth is home to some of the most dangerous predators in the known galaxy," Ward explained as they hiked. "Bears, wolves, mountain lions, you name it, we've got it. You'll see why the Confederation classifies this place as a death world." "Predators," Kalrex scoffed, clearly unimpressed. "Surely with your technology you could get rid of them. Why keep them around?" Ward chuckled. "We could, but where's the fun in that? We live alongside them. It keeps us sharp." The students fell silent at his words, glancing warily into the shadows of the forest, as if expecting one of these predators to leap out at any moment. As the group trekked deeper into the wilderness, the tension in the air thickened. Birds fell silent, and the alien students sensed something amiss. Shira's fronds fluttered anxiously, picking up on the shift. Suddenly the bushes rustled, and a low growl echoed through the trees. A massive bear lumbered into view, its dark fur bristling, eyes locking onto the group. The students froze in terror. Rykon's claws twitched as he instinctively reached for a weapon, but Ward raised a hand. "Stay calm," the human said, his voice steady. "It's just a bear. We're in its territory, just a bear," Ziara hissed, her voice shaking. That thing could tear us apart. Vakari, usually full of snide remarks, was now pale, her usual bravado evaporating. Ward stepped forward slowly, his posture relaxed but deliberate. The bear sniffed the air, watching him intently. The tension was palpable. The alien students, used to technological solutions and force fields, were helpless here. Inara, ever the observer, raised her hand slightly, speaking in a hushed tone. "Why don't you kill it? Eliminate the threat." Ward shook his head. "That's not how we do things. We respect the creatures here. It's about coexistence, not domination." The bear snorted, seemingly satisfied, and turned to lumber away into the trees. The group let out a collective breath they didn't realize they had been holding. As they continued their journey, the aliens were shaken, their confidence in their technological superiority eroded by a mere Earth predator. Zira took the opportunity to continue her lesson. "You've just witnessed what makes humans different. On your worlds, predators were eradicated long ago. But here, humans choose to keep them around because they believe that living with danger keeps them strong." "But that's insane," Tirek muttered, glancing over his shoulder, as if expecting the bear to return. Perhaps Zira agreed, but it's why humans have developed such resilience. Their world has forced them to adapt in ways we can hardly comprehend. While we seek control, they thrive in the chaos. "Is that why humans are so physically strong?" Leoras asked, still winded from the hike. Shira nodded. "Earth's gravity is higher than most planets. Humans are naturally stronger because of it. But it's not just physical. Their minds are conditioned to handle stress, to make split-second decisions in dangerous situations. This is why they excel in combat. Why they've become so influential in the Confederation." Ward, overhearing the conversation, smiled. "We don't just survive, we dominate, but we do it our way." Later, as they rested back at the base, the alien students were quiet, reflecting on what they had experienced. The bear encounter had shaken them more than they cared to admit. They had always thought of humans as reckless and primitive, but now they saw something more, a species that thrived in danger, embracing the very things others feared. Ziara, who had been dismissive of humans throughout the lesson, approached Zira hesitantly. The instructor, "I didn't understand it before, but now I see. Humans, they're not just predators. They're something more. It's like they take power from the world itself." Zira smiled softly, her fronds relaxed. "Yes, Ziara. Humans are unique because they've found balance between living with their planet's dangers and mastering them. That's why they've earned the Confederation's respect." As the sun set over the wilderness, casting long shadows through the forest, Zira looked out into the distance. Her mind wandered to the strange power humans held not just over their world, but over the hearts and minds of the other species that encountered them. Hours later, Zira returned to her living quarters aboard the station orbiting Earth. As the door slid open, she was greeted by the familiar sight of her human companion, Cade, preparing dinner. "Well, there's my little space dragon," Cade said with a grin, wiping his hands on a towel. "How'd the lesson go?" Zira smiled, her earlier tension easing away. "Let's just say, I reminded them how dangerous humans can be." Cade chuckled as he set the table. "Good. I wouldn't want them getting too comfortable." As Zira joined him, her thoughts lingered on Earth, the Deathworld, and the remarkable creatures that called it home. The next morning, the group gathered again at the edge of the research base, this time with a different air about them. The previous day's encounter with the bear had left them quiet and more attentive to their surroundings. Even Ziara, who had once been dismissive, now kept a wary eye on the dense forest. Instructor Zira stood before them, her posture as regal as ever, but with a calmness that came from knowing her students had gained a newfound respect for the planet and its inhabitants. The humans, too, were subtly different. Captain Ward exchanged knowing glances with Zira, a silent understanding that their lesson was only beginning. "Today," Zira began, her voice carrying over the group, "we are moving beyond the wilderness. You've seen Earth's predators, but now we will witness something that perhaps only humans could create: how they manipulate and adapt their environment to suit their needs." Ward grinned as he motioned for them to follow him to the vehicles lined up near the base. "You're in for a treat." The students exchanged curious glances but followed without question. They boarded the rugged human-designed transport, which roared to life, its engines growling like the very predators they had seen the day before. The ride was bumpy, the suspension doing little to soften Earth's uneven terrain, and the aliens struggled to keep their balance. As they sped through the wilderness, the landscape began to change. Towering trees gave way to jagged cliffs, and eventually, a shimmering expanse of water appeared in the distance, the ocean. "Where are we going?" asked Tirek, his voice a mix of trepidation and curiosity. Ward turned around in his seat, his grin widening. "We're heading to the coast. There's something you need to see, how humans challenge not just the land, but the sea as well." The transport came to a halt on the rocky coastline, where powerful waves crashed against the shore, sending mist into the air. The alien students stood in awe of the vast body of water before them. None of their worlds had oceans like this. Earth's oceans were alive, teeming with danger and mystery. You see that Ward pointed out to a group of humans in the distance, standing on thin boards, riding the monstrous waves with ease and confidence. Their Ziara squinted, trying to make sense of the scene. "They're standing on the water surfing," Ward corrected, amused by her confusion. "They're not just standing, they're riding the waves. And those waves could kill them if they're not careful." Inera, always the most curious, stepped closer to Jira. "Why do they do it?" "Isn't it dangerous?" Jira nodded. "That's precisely the point. To humans, the danger is part of the thrill. It's not just about surviving, it's about mastering the elements. For them, it's not enough to be safe. They must test themselves constantly." Ward, still observing the surfers, added, "The ocean is one of the most unpredictable forces on Earth. We can't fully control it, but we've learned to work with it. That's the human way." Kalrex, his usual humor gone, stared at the waves crashing against the rocks. "But why? Why risk it? The ocean could swallow them whole." Ward looked at Kalrex and then back at the ocean. "Because if we didn't push ourselves, if we didn't face the risk, we wouldn't grow. Humans have always had to fight against predators, against the elements, against ourselves. We get stronger by confronting the things that could kill us." As they stood by the shore, watching the humans battle the sea, a distant rumble caught everyone's attention. The ground trembled beneath their feet, subtle but unmistakable. "What is that?" Leoras asked, his normally composed demeanor slipping. Ward's expression darkened. "That's not good. We're near a fault line. Earth's plates are shifting." Before anyone could process the gravity of his words, the tremor intensified, the ground cracking beneath their feet. A section of the cliffside collapsed into the ocean, sending a massive wave surging toward the shore. "Everyone move," Ward barked, grabbing the nearest student, pulling them back toward the transport. Jira's fronds flared, her eyes sharp as she guided the others, her alien strength and agility showing through as she kept pace with the humans. The wave crashed violently against the shore, sending rocks and debris flying. Rykon, who had been closest to the water, was caught off guard, losing his footing as the ground gave way beneath him. Ziara reacted instinctively, grabbing his arm, but the force of the wave pulled them both toward the edge of the cliff. "Help!" Ziara shouted, her usual arrogance replaced by genuine fear. The gravity, the chaos, it was too much for her to handle. Ward, with lightning-fast reflexes, leaped toward them, grabbing both aliens by the arms and hauling them back, his human strength cutting through the exhaustion Earth had already inflicted on the students. "You good?" he asked, breathing heavily but grinning at the shocked expressions on their faces. Rykon nodded, still shaken. I didn't think anyone could move that fast." Ward laughed. "You've got a lot to learn about humans." After the near disaster, the group returned to the safety of the base, their bodies aching from the relentless gravity, their minds racing with the realization that Earth was even more dangerous than they had imagined. As they sat around the campfire that night, the mood had shifted. The students, once skeptical of human strength, now looked at Ward and the other humans with a newfound respect. Ziara, sitting close to the fire, glanced at Ward, her usual bravado gone. "I've always thought of humans as reckless, but now I see why you are the way you are. Earth has shaped you. It's not just the predators or the ocean, it's everything." Jira, who had been observing quietly, nodded. "Exactly, Ziara. Humans are not just survivors, they are masters of their environment. Where we see danger, they see opportunity. This is why they thrive where others falter." Rex, still rubbing his sore arm from the earlier fall, added, "I used to think it was a myth. All those stories about humans being the toughest species in the Confederation. But now I get it." Ward, poking at the fire with a stick, smirked. "It's not about being the toughest, it's about being adaptable. Earth throws everything at us: droughts, earthquakes, predators, even ourselves. But we keep pushing forward. That's what makes us human." The next day, Jira had one final lesson planned. As the group approached a vast canyon, the ground opened up beneath them, revealing a drop that seemed to stretch endlessly below. At the edge of the canyon stood a single human, a base jumper, preparing to leap from the cliffside with only a parachute strapped to his back. The students watched in stunned silence as the human casually stepped to the edge, waved to them, and then threw himself into the void. For a moment, it was as if the entire world stood still. Then, with a rush of wind, the human plummeted downward, disappearing into the depths of the canyon. T-Rex stammered, unable to finish the question. Ward, standing beside them, didn't seem concerned. Watch a second later, the chute deployed, the human soaring upward as the wind caught the fabric, gracefully gliding to the ground far below. The students stared in disbelief. "They do this for fun," Leoris whispered. "For the thrills," Jira corrected, her fronds trembling slightly. "It's not about survival here, it's about confronting the limits of what they can do." Ward grinned. "Humans have always pushed those limits. We don't just survive our world, we conquer it. But not by brute force, by facing it head-on, one challenge at a time." As the shuttle prepared to depart Earth, the alien students looked back at the planet, their previous misconceptions about humans shattered. They had come expecting to find a primitive, reckless race. Instead, they had discovered a species that thrived in danger. A race whose greatest strength was not just their physical power, but their refusal to be dominated by the very forces that threatened them. Ziara, now standing beside Rykon and Rex, nodded to Ward. "I'll never forget this place." "And I'll never forget what it's taught me about your people," Ward smiled. "Earth changes you, it makes you stronger. You'll see." As the shuttle lifted off, Instructor Jira watched her students with pride. They had learned the most important lesson of all, not just about humans, but about themselves. To thrive in the galaxy, one had to adapt, to challenge the limits of fear and comfort. And no species embodied that better than the humans of Earth. Back aboard the station, Jira returned to her quarters, her thoughts still lingering on the field trip. Cade greeted her as she entered, a mischievous grin on his face. "How was the trip? Any of the students get eaten?" Jira smirked, flicking her fronds playfully. "Not this time." "But they came close." Cade laughed, setting down the meal he had prepared. "Good. Keeps them on their toes." As she sat down beside him, Jira glanced out the window, Earth visible in the distance. "Your world, it's unlike any other. They'll never be the same after this, and neither will you," Cade added, wrapping an arm around her. Welcome to Earth weeks had passed since the students returned to the station orbiting Earth. Instructor Jira had noticed a marked change in her students. Ziara was no longer brash and dismissive, her sarcasm replaced by a cautious respect for humans. Rykon and Thyra had increased their physical training, attempting to adapt to Earth's high-gravity conditions even while aboard the station. Inara had been poring over human texts, her curiosity about the human mind and their predatory instincts growing by the day. Jira herself had found it increasingly difficult to return to the sterile, controlled environment of the station. Earth's chaos and raw vitality had left an indelible mark on her. Even now, as she walked the quiet halls of the station, she felt the pulse of the planet below, as though it was calling to her. But the call of Earth wasn't the only thing pulling at her thoughts. A new development had recently reached her attention, something that threatened to unravel the delicate balance between the Confederation and humanity. Instructor Jira stood in the Confederation Council chamber aboard the station, flanked by Captain Ward and her most promising students Ziara, Rykon, and Inara. Across the table sat a group of senior Confederation officials, their expressions grim. "We've received a distress signal from a research outpost deep within Earth's most dangerous territory," one of the officials said, his voice low and tense. "The area is unstable both geologically and biologically. We have lost contact with the team." Ziara furrowed her brow, glancing at Ward. Why send them there in the first place? Because the area holds crucial biological samples, human studies on species that have evolved to thrive in these extreme conditions, Ward answered, his voice calm but serious. If those samples are lost, or worse, if the research team is in danger, we risk losing decades of work. The Confederation officials nodded, but their eyes flickered with uncertainty. Earth's unpredictability unnerved them, and the thought of sending a rescue team into its wildest depths left them uneasy. We need a joint team, the senior official continued, looking directly at Jira and Ward. Your students have learned much from Earth, and they may be the only ones capable of assisting in this mission. We're sending you, Jira, along with Captain Ward, to locate the team and secure the research. Jira's fronds trembled slightly, but her voice remained steady. And if we encounter resistance, you will. Earth is not forgiving, Ward said quietly, but that's why you'll need humans with you. The shuttle pierced through Earth's atmosphere, the same rumble of atmospheric friction filling the cabin as it had during their last descent. This time, however, the students were silent, their expressions tense. Ziara clenched her jaw. Her body taut as she adjusted to the gravity. Raikon breathed deeply, his claws wrapped around the safety harness. Inara sat perfectly still, her eyes closed, mentally preparing for what lay ahead. We're landing in a region humans call the Badlands, Ward announced. Looking out at the jagged landscape coming into view, it's a place that even most humans avoid. The shuttle set down near the outpost, the ground beneath it cracked and dry. A desert-like wasteland that stretched as far as the eye could see. The sky above was a strange mix of dust and storm clouds, with distant lightning flashing across the horizon. Jira stepped out first, her fronds tingling with the sudden shift in pressure and the oppressive heat. Even for her, Earth's environments were a constant test. Her students followed, clearly struggling with the planet's gravity and temperature. But they said nothing. They had been here before. They knew what awaited them. The outpost was deserted. The group approached the entrance, the wind howling through the empty structures. Inside, overturned tables, scattered papers, and abandoned equipment suggested a hurried departure. Something spooked them, Ward said, narrowing his eyes. He walked over to one of the data terminals, typing furiously. The logs show seismic activity. But that's not all. Ziara leaned in, her eyes narrowing. What else? Ward's fingers stopped, and he glanced over his shoulder. Predators. Large ones. They've been tracking the team. The students exchanged uneasy glances. They had heard of Earth's most dangerous predators, creatures that had adapted to the harshest conditions imaginable. But facing them here, in the wild, was something else entirely. We need to find them fast, Jira said, her voice tight. If these creatures are on the hunt, Ward nodded. We move now. As they ventured deeper into the Badlands, the group moved quickly but cautiously. The terrain was treacherous, with rocky outcrops and sudden drop-offs that made every step a potential hazard. The seismic activity in the area hadn't settled either. Small tremors rumbled beneath their feet, reminding them that Earth was never still. Suddenly, Inara froze, her masked face turning toward a distant ridge. Something's coming. Ward motioned for silence, his hand instinctively reaching for the weapon strapped to his side. Jira's fronds flared out, her senses sharpening. The wind had shifted. Something large was nearby. Then, out of the dust and shadows, a pack of creatures emerged. Massive, sleek predators with scales that shimmered in the fading light. Their eyes gleamed with an unnatural intelligence, and their low growls sent shivers down the spines of the alien students. Those are Draco wolves, Ward said grimly. They're not just fast, they're smart, and they've learned to hunt anything that moves. Ziara's eyes widened. We can't outrun them. We don't need to, Ward replied, drawing his weapon. We outsmart them. The Draco wolves charged, their movements swift and coordinated. The ground shook as they approached, their predatory instincts driving them toward the group. Jira moved with precision, her mind racing as she calculated their best chance of survival. Ward stood at the front, his weapon raised, firing precise shots at the lead creature. Ziara and Raikon, despite their earlier fears, moved in tandem, their training kicking in as they adapted to Earth's high gravity. Inara, always the observer, kept her distance, her keen eyes watching for weaknesses in the predator's movements. Jira used her telepathic abilities to send mental commands to her students, guiding them through the chaos. Focus on their flanks. They're trying to circle us. The battle was fierce, the Draco wolves relentless in their pursuit. But the team, though outnumbered, fought with a newfound strength one forged in the crucible of Earth's dangers. Ziara, once arrogant and dismissive of human resilience, now fought side by side with Ward, her movements calculated and precise. Inara spotted an opportunity, calling out the ridge if we can draw them there. The ground is unstable. Ward nodded, barking orders. Everyone to the ridge with a coordinated effort. The team retreated toward the rocky outcrop, drawing the Draco wolves into the trap. As the predators leaped after them, the ground gave way, sending several of the creatures tumbling into the crevasse below. The remaining Draco wolves, sensing their disadvantage, backed off, their glowing eyes narrowing before they slunk away into the shadows. The group stood in the aftermath, panting and bruised but alive. Once the dust settled, they resumed their search, eventually finding the missing research team huddled in a makeshift cave, their equipment damaged but intact. The researchers, a mix of humans and Confederation scientists, were shaken but relieved to see their rescuers. "We were studying the fault line," one of the researchers explained, when the seismic activity triggered a migration of the Draco wolves. "We didn't expect them to come this far," Jira nodded, her fronds trembling slightly. "The badlands are more dangerous than we thought," Ward, ever the pragmatist, helped the researchers to their feet. "Let's get you back to base. You survived long enough down here." As the group prepared to leave Earth once again, Shira stood at the edge of the shuttle platform, looking out at the desolate landscape. Earth had tested them once more, and they had come through stronger for it. Her students, now hardened by their experiences, had gained more than just knowledge. They had earned the respect of the very planet that had sought to destroy them. Ziara approached, her eyes still wide with the intensity of the battle. "Instructor." "I finally understand." Jira glanced at her, one frond raised. "Understand what?" Ziara took a deep breath, the weight of Earth's gravity no longer crushing her. "Humans don't just survive this world, they belong to it. And maybe. So do we." Jira smiled, her fronds relaxing. "Yes, Ziara. Perhaps we do." Back aboard the station, Jira found herself once again in her quarters with Cade. He looked up from his work, his eyes filled with curiosity. "Bad trip?" he asked, noticing the fatigue in her movements. Jira shook her head, a rare smile crossing her lips. "No, quite the opposite." Cade chuckled. "You're becoming more human every day." You know, Zira's smile widened as she leaned against the window, gazing out at Earth below. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing." If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that says we will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.